A very good evening and welcome to Yes 101 Visual Radio. For the News First team, I am Rochelle Thamodara.
And I'm Mariam Gunavijaya. First up is a look at your headlines.
News First headline.
Court issues order preventing the suspension of Field Marshal Sarath Fonseka from the SJB. Salinity barrier across Kalani River as dry weather strains water supply. No greater comeback story than the story of Sri Lanka, says the US. China's Xinjiang battles harshest cold spell in over 6 decades. Sinner savors Rotterdam's success after Australian Open high.
Now on to your news in detail. First, your local news. The Colombo District Court issued an order preventing the suspension of the party membership and positions held by Field Marshal Sarath Fonseka in the Samagi Janabala Vege. The order was issued after the petition was filed by Field Marshal Sarath Fonseka. The order will remain in effect for 14 days. Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa, Secretary General of the SJB Ranjit Madhva Bandara, National Organizer Tissa Tanaika and Treasurer Harshadi Silva have been named as respondents in the petition.
Moving on in more local news, concerned about declining water levels due to dry weather, the Water Supply and Drainage Board announced plans to construct a salinity barrier across the Kalani River. Deputy General Manager Engineer Anuja Kalwarachi says preliminary work on the barrier is already underway. However, she emphasized that water distribution will continue using the existing water capacity for the time being. Now, the announcement comes amid concerns about the impact of prolonged dry weather on Sri Lanka's water resources. Kalwarachi pointed out that water consumption has increased due to these conditions, prompting the Water Supply and Drainage Board to urge consumers to use water sparingly.
On to more local news, the Assistant Secretary of State for South and Central Asian Affairs, Donald Lu, says that there is no greater comeback story than the story of Sri Lanka. He was speaking at a forum organized by the United States Institute of Peace over the weekend.
I mean, one of the real challenges that I see as a government person is the Indian Ocean in government is all cut into pieces.
Yeah.
Right? I do a piece of it because I do South Asia. My colleagues who cover Africa do a piece of it. In many parts of the US government, Pakistan is treated as a separate part, so there's like a division between Pakistan and India. It makes the coordination more challenging. We are coming to grips with that. We are finding ways to work together. It's a tricky piece of the puzzle, in part because we're a big force in the Indian Ocean. China is a much bigger force, right? If you're going to, India. If you're going to get this right, you need to work with the Indians and make sure what we're doing is consistent with the direction that they're moving in with respect to the Indian Ocean. They are historically the big player. And so we are having really interesting talks, including talks that will launch at the end of this month about Africa, to think about how we're working together, particularly in those littoral states of Africa that border on the Indian Ocean, to make sure we have more commonality in the way that we're approaching the region.
International news.
In international news, temperatures broke a 64-year-old record in China's far western region of Xinjiang, plunging to a bone-chilling minus 52.3 degrees Celsius amid a cold spell and traffic disruption following the Chinese New Year holidays. Several parts of China are battling another deep freeze as people returned from week-long celebrations of the year's biggest holiday. Now, just before it started, blizzards and icy rain had stranded travelers on railways and roads.
Sports news.
Now on to your sports news. Rotterdam title may pale in comparison to winning the Australian Open Grand Slam, but Yannick Sinner said his victory at the ATP 500 event was still important to him after the Italian rose to the career-high number 3 in the world rankings. Sinner, who lifted his first major at Melbourne Park by defeating Daniil Medvedev in the final, stretched his winning run in 2024 to 12 matches with a 7-5, 6-4 victory over Alexander Manua in the Rotterdam final on Sunday. And that's wrap up your news for this hour. Thank you for joining us.